it's interesting. What the Obama administration did yesterday is a good example of how they're trying to toe sort of a middle ground on energy policy. They took some steps that would allow, or were sort of preliminary towards allowing more offshore drilling in Alaska and the Atlantic Ocean. In Alaska, they approved a permit or a spill response plan for Shell, which is a major milestone on the way for them to drill there this summer. They still need to get more permits, but a big step there. And in the Atlantic Ocean, they're allowing more seismic testing and surveys that could be done as early as 2013. And both these moves, environmental groups don't like much. But if you ask the oil industry, for example, about the Atlantic Ocean testing that they're allowing, they point out that in 2010, before the Deepwater Horizon disaster, the Obama administration was ready to allow leasing and potential drilling off the coast of Virginia. Now they're sort of allowing testing that could someday lead to drilling. So it's a step forward that the environmental groups don't love, but at the same time, the industry is not completely pleased with either.
Well, what's interesting to me, Ryan, is that you talk about the president walking a middle ground, and I don't know, maybe you can speculate for me, but it seems to me that you're talking about this sort of environmental base, which is, of course, part of the base that Obama needs to get reelected. At the same time, we do have these energy prices that affects all consumers, these gasoline prices, which are just going up. Is that basically the tightrope that the president is trying to walk here? He's got political issues in regard to an election coming up, and he's got also practical issues as well.
Yeah, I mean, energy is a tough, it's a tough issue for him because, so much of his base really cares about climate change, and yet he wants to appeal to moderate voters who care about the economy and want to see him taking steps to do things that would boost the economy, which, allowing more drilling, allowing the Keystone XL pipeline to be built. Those sort of decisions are arguably, a short-term boost for the economy. So it's something that he's having to kind of figure out how can he, please the environmental left and still make the case that he's not completely opposed to domestic production, because that's something that's important to the economy in a lot of the country. So I think it's what they're trying to do is say, look, we're allowing production, we're allowing drilling, but we're doing it at a pace that will allow us to take safety measures and to make sure that it's done right. And it's certainly not pleasing everyone, but sometimes when everyone's annoyed at you, it's an indication that you're doing a good job of finding the middle.
Well, it's a difficult thing, and I wonder, where is public sentiment on this? Because we all remember watching, the video of the BP spill and the oil pumping out into the Gulf. The environmental groups are saying that these plans for the spill safety that they just approved a few days ago don't go far enough. So I'm curious to know where you think the voting public is on allowing this offshore drilling, given what we saw a few years ago.
Well, I think how people respond to offshore drilling probably depends on how close it is to them in some respects. The people who live in the Gulf of Mexico area, for example, are used to having drilling in the Gulf of Mexico, and so they see what it does for the local economy. Then again, if you ask someone in California whether they'd like to see rigs in the Pacific Ocean, they'd probably tell you absolutely not. So energy is an interesting issue from an election perspective, because it's not clear that voters really rank it number one when they go into the ballot box. I mean, things like the economy and other issues, in the most recent Wall Street Journal poll we did, ranked ahead of energy. The deficit was another one that was above energy. And so to the extent that high gas prices affect the economy and affect the way that the economy is doing this November, that's going to be a much bigger deal than some of these smaller policy decisions that most voters aren't going to remember when they're casting their vote.